For 30 years, the moon sat silent, a relic of the past that we thought we had already finished exploring. For an entire generation, the lunar surface wasn't a destination. It was just a distant grey memory of a race long since won. But recently, the silence has been broken. Across the globe, international interest has surged. From the high-precision landings of Japan to the ambitious lunar programs of India and China, the moon has once again become the most valuable real estate in the solar system. This global momentum has set the stage for something even more inspiring. After half a century of staying within Earth's orbit, humanity is finally ready to step back into the deep dark. NASA is preparing to launch a mission that is not just about a flyby. It's a test of our courage, our technology, and our future as a multiplanetary species. Welcome to Gravity Scan. In this video we are breaking down the plan, the vehicle, and the crew of the first human journey to the moon in over 50 years, Artemis II. But first, let's quickly recap the previous Artemis I mission that aimed to prove the concept. The primary mission was clear: demonstrate that the SLS rocket could deliver Orion to the moon, prove the spacecraft could operate in a deep space environment, and, most importantly, ensure that the crew capsule could safely return and be recovered. It was about stress testing every bolt and line of code before risking a human life. On November 16, 2022 at 1:47 am, the Florida night sky was torn open by the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built, the Space Launch System, or SLS. Producing a staggering 8.8 million pounds of thrust, it carried the uncrewed Orion spacecraft into the dark, marking the first time a human-rated vehicle had left Earth's orbit in half a century. Artemis I was a mission of extremes. It wasn't just a simple loop around the moon. Its goal was to push the hardware to its absolute breaking point before any humans stepped inside. Over the course of 25 days, Orion traveled over 1.4 million miles. It reached a distant retrograde orbit, swinging 40,000 miles past the moon, farther than any spacecraft built for humans has ever flown. It wasn't empty either. Inside were 3 mannequins equipped with thousands of sensors to measure the radiation and vibration that future crews would face. One of the most exciting parts of the mission came during the return home. On December 11, 2022, Orion hit Earth's atmosphere at a blistering 25,000 miles per hour. To handle this incredible energy, Orion performed a world-first skip entry. To demonstrate this maneuver, I've mapped the time-lapse footage of Orion's return to Earth onto a sample trajectory. While I've done my best to align them, it may not be perfectly precise, but it should give you a clear idea of the path taken. Think of it like skipping a stone across a pond. Instead of diving straight in, Orion dipped into the upper atmosphere to bleed off speed, then used its own aerodynamic lift to bounce briefly back into space. This clever maneuver does 3 things. It splits the extreme heat of re-entry into 2 smaller doses. It significantly reduces the g-forces that future astronauts will feel, and it allows NASA to aim the capsule with pinpoint accuracy toward its splashdown target. The result? A near-perfect success. Orion splashed down the Pacific Ocean, proving that the heat shield, the parachutes, and the life support structures were ready. NASA had its data. The rocket worked. The capsule survived. The path was officially clear for the return of a human crew. Focus now officially shifts from testing the hardware to trusting the people inside it. Artemis II isn't just a follow-up, it's the moment we return humanity to the equation. To do this, NASA has assembled a team of 4 veterans, each bringing a specific edge to a mission that leaves no room for error. On 3rd of April 2023, NASA and the Canadian Space Agency officially introduced the 4 pioneers who will command the first crewed lunar mission in over half a century. Leading the team is Commander Reed Wiseman, a graduate of the US Naval Test Pilot School. Before his assignment to Artemis II, he served as the Chief of the Astronaut Office. In this leadership position, he was responsible for the safety, training and mission readiness for the entire NASA astronaut corps.
Our sights are not set on the moon. Our sights are set clearly on Mars.
This gave him a high-level view of the Artemis program's development, allowing him to oversee how the Orion spacecraft systems were integrated into the mission long before he was ever assigned to his captain's chair. In the pilot's seat is Victor Glover, a naval aviator with over 3,000 flight hours in more than 40 different aircraft. Victor was the pilot of the first operational SpaceX Crew Dragon mission. He's the person you want at the controls when things get complex. Beyond his wings, he's an engineer who spent his time on the ISS working on advanced biological and physical science experiments. Mission specialist Christina Cook is the only professional engineer in the team. A veteran of the International Space Station, she logged 328 consecutive days in space, the longest single flight by a woman in history. Unlike the commander and pilot, who focus on the flying, Cook is the primary specialist responsible for the spacecraft's internal life support, like power or water systems, and ensuring all technical components remain operational during the deep space journey. Finally, mission specialist Jeremy Hansen joins from the Canadian Space Agency, a former fighter pilot and a colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces, first Canadian to lead the NASA astronaut class. Jeremy has spent years training astronauts and managing complex space operations from the ground as a lead Capcom in mission control. On Artemis II, he utilizes his deep expertise in mission systems and navigation to serve as a critical backup and systems validator. While Reed, Victor, Christina and Jeremy are the faces of the mission, their survival for 10 days in the vacuum of space depends entirely on the vessel called Orion. From the moment the engines ignite to the second they splash down in the Pacific, Orion isn't just a vehicle, it's a self-contained ecosystem. To understand how Orion achieves this, we have to look at its structure. It isn't a single unit, but a massive, international collaboration divided into 3 primary sections: the launch abort system, the crew module, and the service module. The launch abort system, or LAS, is designed to protect the crew during the most dangerous part of the mission, the ascent. Here we can see it in action during a test launch. If a life-threatening emergency occurs on the launch pad or during the climb to orbit, the LAS can ignite in milliseconds, pulling the capsule away with enough force to ensure the crew reaches a safe distance before deploying their parachutes. To put its power into perspective, it can accelerate the crew module from 0 to 500 miles per hour in just 2 seconds. The European Service Module, sitting directly beneath the capsule, is the ship's powerhouse. Built by Airbus Defence and Space in Germany on behalf of the European Space Agency. This cylindrical module is roughly 4 meters or 13 feet tall and provides the mission propulsion, maneuvering, and precise position control. It is also the crew's life support reservoir, storing the essential water, oxygen, and nitrogen needed for the journey. In total, it contains a complex array of 33 engines, 1 powerful main engine for major burns, 8 auxiliary engines for backup and mid-course corrections, and 24 reaction control thrusters to orient the ship in space. It also features 4 iconic solar wings that extend to a span of 90 meters or 62 feet once in orbit, generating enough electricity to power 2 average homes. The Crew module, manufactured by Lockheed Martin in the United States. This is the iconic cone-shaped capsule where the astronauts live. It stands about 3.3 meters or 11 feet tall and 5 meters or 16.5 feet wide. It's built from a high-tech aluminum-lithium alloy, making it incredibly strong yet light enough to be propelled to the moon. On the bottom is a massive heat shield made of avcod, an ablative material that intentionally burns away to dissipate the heat generated during re-entry, shielding the crew as they hit the atmosphere. The interior of Orion is surprisingly spacious, offering about 60% more room than the old Apollo capsules. It features 4 ergonomic adjustable seats that can be stowed away to create more floor space. The glass cockpit uses 3 large digital screens to replace hundreds of physical switches, while the rest of the cabin is divided into functional zones: a galley for food prep, a compact exercise device to maintain muscle mass, and a dedicated sleep area where bags are tethered to the walls. Orion is designed to execute an abort and return to Earth from any point in the mission, regardless of orbital alignment with Earth, and provides a safe haven and survival equipment for onboard crew for up to 24 hours post-landing. Orion is a marvel of global engineering, a ship built by thousands of people across 2 continents, all working to ensure 4 explorers can make the journey to the moon and back safely. As impressive as Orion is, it cannot reach the moon on its own. To break free of Earth's gravity, it sits atop the Space Launch System, or SLS. At the moment of ignition, its massive core stage powered by 4 RS-25 engines is supported by 2 solid rocket boosters. You might notice the rocket striking orange color. This isn't actually paint, but a specialized spray-on-foam insulation. Because the SLS uses supercooled liquid hydrogen and oxygen as fuel, the tanks must stay at very low temperatures. Without this foam, ice would build up on the outside of the rocket, adding dangerous weight and potentially breaking off to damage the spacecraft during ascent. When first applied, the foam is actually a creamy yellow, but over time exposure to the sun's UV rays causes it to oxidize and turn that famous deep orange. But this much power creates a unique problem. The acoustic energy alone is so intense, it could vibrate the rocket to pieces. To prevent this, NASA uses a sound suppression system that floods the launch pad with water in seconds. This creates the massive cloud of steam seen at liftoff, which absorbs the deafening roar and protects the crew inside Orion from the destructive force of the sound waves. Now let's break down the mission plan. After the SLS exhausts its initial power, jettisoning the solid rocket boosters and the core stage, it delivers the upper stage and the Orion capsule into a high Earth orbit. The crew will spend approximately 24 hours here, performing critical system checks and ensuring the spacecraft is fully prepared for the deep space environment. It's a period of intense focus and reflection before the final push toward the lunar distance. Here are some insights from pilot Victor Glover about the significance of the mission's first day.
Gonna rocket us towards space, and about 9 minutes after that we'll be in space, and then the day gets even busier. Now, we've been up for almost a full workday at this point, and so once we get to space, the ascent portion really ends after about a half an orbit, when we're going to go from a 1,200 mile by 0 mile orbit to doing what we call a perigee-raise maneuver that gets us into a stable and sustainable orbit. And then we're going to get a couple of us out of our seats and start to check out really critical systems: the water system and the toilet.
Very important.
Got to have a toilet to go to the moon. And so we're going to be working as a team and working with mission control to make sure that the vehicle is ready. And then we're going to go around the Earth in about the same amount of time that the International Space Station goes around the Earth, in 90 minutes. And once we get to that closest point to the Earth, or perigee, we're going to do something called an apogee raise burn. And that apogee raise burn is going to get us going into an orbit that humans have never been in, almost 40,000 miles away from the Earth on one end. And then we'll do a perigee raise burn to get us back above 100 miles or so on the close side. But right after that apogee raise burn on the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, we're going to disconnect from that upper stage and then turn around and fly and approach to it. And we're going to fly it by hand. And we're going to make sure that the flying qualities of the Orion spacecraft are suitable for the more complex missions where we're going to dock to a lander or to the gateway, the orbiting space station around the moon. And then once we're done with that, we're going to continue to reconfigure the cabin to make sure that it's ready for us to live and to work for the next 9 days. We're going to break down the seats. We're going to make sure the environmental control system is ready. And then we're going to monitor a few burns. And that first day, we're going to take a nap and then wake up and observe a burn in the middle of the night. We're going to go back to sleep, take another nap, wake up, and then we're going to have the lead up working very tightly with our friends here in Houston and Mission Control, leading up to trans-lunar injection. And when that team is ready and gives us the go, we're going to burn the engines and head toward the moon. And that actually happens, if you were looking at my chart, that happens on this second row right here. And that's the point where we're going to wrap that day up and actually have a normal sleep period. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit of how busy and how many really critical things are going to happen on that first day.
Once the crew is finished with their checks and rests in Earth's orbit, it's time to head for the moon. Orion will fire its main engine for one big push. This burn sets the spacecraft on what's called a free-run trajectory. Orion will fly to the moon, use the moon's own gravity to whip around its far side, and naturally fall back toward Earth. But astronauts won't just be sitting back during the 4-day transit. They will be busy conducting scientific experiments to study how the deep space environment affects the human body and onboard systems. As they approach the moon, the mission becomes an intensive lesson in geology. Using powerful cameras, the astronauts will capture high-resolution images of the lunar surface. To prepare for this, the crew underwent specialized geology training in the volcanic landscapes of Iceland, learning how to identify lunar-like rock formations and craters from a distance. After the flyby is complete, the journey home begins. This return leg takes about 4 days. As the mission nears its end, the capsule separates from its service module and prepares for its final descent, eventually deploying its parachutes for a gentle splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. This successful return marks the end of a historic 10-day journey, but for the rest of us, it's only the beginning. Artemis II is our generation's Apollo moment. For the first time in over 50 years, we will see our world through the eyes of 4 explorers looking back from the moon. NASA will provide detailed information on every part of the mission, giving us front row seat as history unfolds. The mission is currently scheduled to launch as early as February 6, 2026, when the first available flight window opens. This date marks the beginning of a new era of lunar exploration.